to your House chamber. Um, Thank you. Or actually, we apologize for some of the inconvenience. I know we've been trying to put this meeting together for a while, but the schedules have been conflicting, and we've also been using the chamber for some training for our staff. But we're here now, and I'm glad we have the time to come together and have this meeting. So I'd like to welcome members of the Saipan Chamber of Commerce and, of course, the Hotel Association. Before we move forward, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the members that are here with us this morning. To my far right is the chairwoman to my left is the vice speaker of the House, Joel Camacho. To his left is the chairwoman of the Judicial Governmental Operations, JGO, Representative Marissa R. Flores. And to her left is the chairman of Education, Representative Manny Costro. And right across is Representative Denita Yanktamay. I know we had the chairman of SNILE that walked in for a little bit. He'll probably be back, Representative John Paul Sablan. And with that, I'd like to hand the mic over to you, Alex, and to introduce the members that are here with you. Okay.
Good morning. I'll just start and introduce myself. My name is Dr. Joshua Wise. I'm the general manager for PA Pharmacy and the vice president for the Saipan Chamber of Commerce.
Alex Sablon, board member for the Saipan Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, Brad Rosala with Triple J and also an incoming member for the Chamber Board.
Ivan Kijicho, HANMI.
Denise Montenegro from Hyatt.
On behalf of Simon Groff, Hyatt Regency Saipan General Manager, I'm Ellie Hong. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And once again, welcome. Just to let you all know, we are live and we'll be recording this also for our reference later on. So with that, we'll go ahead and hand the floor over to you to go ahead and open up this meeting. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Speaker and members of this august body. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet. And I think, as we've done in the past, the opportunity to have an open dialogue, open conversation about anything and everything that's kind of on our minds. But more specifically, in actually many years, the Hotel Association of Northern Mariana Islands and the Saipan Chamber of Commerce have come together to discuss issues of importance, of course, and to come together and collaborate on messaging related to things that are impacting our industries, not just the hotel industry, but the pharmaceutical industry here in the Commonwealth and many other businesses that are being impacted by specific issues that are causing difficulty within the marketplace. I think you've all received a copy of our letter, a joint letter from HANMI and the Chamber related to how we look at forecasting the marketplace and seeing I think the implications that are coming fast and furious over the course of the next fiscal year related to the overall numbers. And, we are, as we've talked about in recent past, we are open to all markets. We're interested in, as we were administration, we were looking at the idea of Australia. We've been talking with Guam about the idea of visa waiver for the Philippines. We think that makes sense. They've got an upper echelon society that is traveling and has the ability to move between many different jurisdictions freely. And it makes sense because of the populous base that we have here in Guam, Sinamaya and Guam, that the Philippines would be a possible viable marketplace. The idea of Taiwan for tourism as well is an open opportunity. Again, looking at the numbers, related to overall markets. We need all the numbers to come as quickly as possible because of the fact that our primary markets, Korea, Taiwan, are not coming back as quickly as we'd like. And they're not coming back as quickly as we'd like in many other jurisdictions. Japan, as we all know, has a currency issue, and in large part, their populous base is still traveling domestically. Um, Pre-COVID, and probably over the course of 20 years, as we may track, Japan has had a 20-year GDP stalemate. They haven't had a raise in wages. It's recently coming about as a conversation, but they just have not been a major traveling group into the CNMI. And quite possibly the issue comes down to, they have about 110, 120 million people. They've had 20 million passports for 20 years. Pre-COVID, they're still at 14, and they're not growing because of the fact that they're not traveling internationally. And so the conversations have been had about how long is it going to be for Japan to build back up again. Prediction is maybe 2025 as the markets improve. They're making moves within country to try to improve their economy, to try to grow their wages, and to see a marketplace that may demographically change over time. The CNMI is not well known by Generation Z and millennials, I guess. And it's often seen as their fathers and grandparents' place of travel. And so we have to change that dynamic. Of course, MVA is working on that effort. And then you look at the Taiwan numbers. They've been a very mature market into Guam for the last course of maybe 30 years. And on average, over the course of a decade, at least in tracking, they've been on average about 25,000 visitors into Guam. And that's on an annual basis. And in large part, a lot of that number is double counting residents of Guam who are Taiwanese citizens. And so if you really break down the numbers, they aren't spendthrift. They are in large part residents of Guam. And in current timeline, they just haven't been able to justify direct service. When the visa waiver program for Guam CNMI was started, it was started on the basis that Taiwan was a direct service route. They could not transit to other ports. And so, this is in large part a product of the location and at that time the geopolitical issues that are playing out. But at this point, I think in last fiscal year for Guam, it pegged out around 5,000 visitors to Guam. And again, double counting a good portion of those numbers for residents of Taiwan who live in Guam. And so that's that market. And then we're looking at Korea, and it's rebounding. Again, not as fast as we'd all liked. And seeing as how, Guam has come back to almost 100%, if not 100% of all pre-COVID flights. And that's all LCCs, a majority of the LCCs and our domestic United, Japan Airlines, and other off carriers that are being chartered. But they're still not seeing the numbers as we are not seeing the numbers, right? They're relatively under 50%, probably in most markets. If you look at our numbers, and something we've been somewhat talking to MVA about, because they're pegging their numbers against 2019, and we feel that that's a distorted number. As we all know, we had COVID. We had U2 in 2018, and within the fiscal year, we didn't get that entire fiscal year complete. So we were impacted in October, and November and December. And so those 3 months, we look at it as an asterisk in their comparison, because they're comparing against a fiscal year that had something like 426,000. But we really believe that they should be juxtaposing the numbers against 2018 or 2017. because those were the years we had a complete fiscal year of entry of tourism. And so then, we look at the overall numbers, and it's not at, just under 50% or 50%. It's actually at around 43, and even worse if you compare it against 2017. So that's, just an anomaly, I guess, from a standpoint of statistics. But we feel it's important because we're not sending the right messaging, because we are further in dire straits than I think people are purporting. If we're not at 53 and 60% compared against 2019, we really believe the real numbers should be focused in on, we're at 60, 65, 70% down. And so you're only at 30 to 35% in the marketplace in comparison to year over years in a full year of tourism. And so that takes me to the conversation that we had in the letter that we sent to you. And this joint letter was in large part looking at, again, the marketplace, trying to look at what the numbers are going to be. I know you've recently passed a budget, and congratulations to that effort. But to the point I was making about the numbers and the statistics, I think our worst fiscal year in Commonwealth history was 2010. It was transition, the last of the apparel industry out of the Commonwealth in 2009. There was a mass exodus of our people, as we all know. But in that timeline, if you recall, we still had 350,000 tourists coming into the Commonwealth. And I think as of the latest numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, I stand corrected, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 180, 200,000. Yeah. So we're down 150,000 tourists. But if you also recall, in that timeline, we had Chinese, and they were roughly 40% of the marketplace, along with the Koreans. We had relatively no Japanese because Japan Airlines had already pulled out in 2005. United suspended. Delta was suspending. And so we were down in numbers because of that effort as well. And so we're basically coming with the message that the numbers just aren't adding up in our total arrivals. We don't believe the comparison is just in the overall numbers from MVA. And we just believe that by looking at all of our hotels, and they can speak to their numbers themselves, but in looking at the overall marketplace, we are really at a point of desperation, if you will, for many of the operators. And I'll disclaim that our organization is one of those operators, along with Hyatt and many of the other HANMI members. But all our numbers are way down, as you know. It would be translating to hotel occupancy tax if the numbers were up. And so our messaging is we need to go after all the markets. And in our conversation with the administration and discussions about this effort, we looked at all the issues related to what the issue is with the Chinese market. And we had asked, as we've laid out in the letter, there are a few more other issues that have come up there that need to be mitigated. But really, that's the word we want to use is how do we mitigate the continued opportunity, since we still have the opportunity of discretionary parole. It has not been taken away. There are still Chinese arriving into the Commonwealth. In fact, last month, if they believe the number is correct, statistically, China was our number 2 market over Japan. We had 500 entries from Japan, a little over 1,300, 1,400 Chinese, and then the swooping number of 180,000 Koreans. And so, they're still coming. These are well-to-do individuals. I think if you read the news and see what's playing out in China and many other countries, The people that are traveling are those individuals that did not get decimated in the COVID timeline. Millions and millions of Chinese got decimated in the COVID timeline. So the individuals that are traveling are your well-to-do, the individuals we really, really want, who are going to be the FIT marketplace, the free independent travelers that are spending money on the ground, renting cars, going to restaurants, buying from DFS and Joten and all the other uh, retail opportunities that are here. But again, that's where we're at right now is kind of everybody's in a wait and see mode. I think, as you see, we haven't had our number one attraction outside of Managaha startup, which is the submarine. We don't have all of the tour operators in your coastal tours like Stars and Stripes operating. We don't have probably 80% of the marine tour operators running their jet skis along the shores. We don't have anything to do after 7 p.m. has been reported by NBA and the news. And as we've seen over time, we're starting to see F&B and retail operators shut down and shutter, awaiting the idea that maybe tourism is going to come back. But there is nothing on the horizon in their view and conversations we're having with members that play out that there is going to be some hope in play for numbers that justify starting up a submarine or starting up Stars and Stripes or opening back up major high-end retail. And so I just kind of wanted to set the play on what our conversation piece is about, going after all marketplaces and trying to drive the numbers in, because as we all know, without the true help that the federal government could or maybe can provide, and that's good for government. If they get 50 million, 160 million infused into the coffers of government, that helps government gets some movement of dollars on the ground and a multiplier effect. But that's really all it helps is government in large part. Yes, we'll get some of those individuals into our F&B, our retail spending, but it's not going to be the true driver, which is our tourism marketplace that really needs to bolster the tax dollars that we all need to run this economy and to run all of our businesses. So I want to pass it on. I don't want to be the only speaker, so maybe I can pass it on to Ivan, Brad, whoever.
Morning. From the HANMI perspective, the recent suspension of Ajana and reduction of flights from the other two carriers has basically left us with 3 direct flights a day at a capacity of a little over 180. That's under 500. Now, the other markets, as Alex called out, China, which came in number 2, utilize that infrastructure. So they go from China to Korea into the CNMI. And so that doesn't add anything to the infrastructure, the pipeline. In terms of Japan, MVA is doing everything under the sun. I can assure you that. There isn't a play they haven't ran. If we're talking in football terms, I mean, they've gone through the entire playbook, and there's just nothing short of subsidizing travel because of the foreign exchange being so weak. U.S. denominated destinations currency are extremely, extremely expensive. I think it hit a high of 152 was last week, but it's been hovering around 150 yen to the dollar. So with a compressed or reduced pipeline, the opportunity for the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, the wholesale, consumption in general is also condensed. So this has implications on shipping, fuel, all the infrastructure salaries for the hotel worker, the tour operators, the optional tour operators, all the way down the value chain. Less customers, less commerce, less consumption. And then, of course, there's the government austerity measures that were taken as well. So that compounds that as in terms of that segment of the marketplace also being compressed and somewhat limited in terms of expendable funds to be circulating in the economy. At the beginning of this year, we talked about what the pipeline was in terms of air seats versus the inventory of our hotels. And the best case scenario was 34% occupancy if we spread it across every hotel that operated, just average. It was a 34%. And to benchmark against the years that Alex has talked about, 2017, 2016, 2018, the hotel industry was operating around high 80s, low 90s as an industry. If you wonder why there's so many guest houses, so many Airbnbs, is because we reached a saturation point of more guests or more air seats versus inventory of hotel rooms, utilizing the package patterns, staying 3 nights, 4 nights, and 5 nights. And so there just wasn't enough rooms to confirm groups. I can confirm 2 out of 5. I can confirm 3 out of 7. And so as a result, there was seats left open on the aircraft, as well as rooms available on the island, but only at the top. So when you're running at that kind of an occupancy, it's going to push the market to respond, and respond it did. And I think maybe maybe you don't know, but at that time, I think the island added somewhere almost 900 to about 1,100 extra rooms. On top of the hotels, it was guest houses, apartments that were converted, and whatnot. So there was additional capacity even thrown on. So these were all investors, local investors, small, large, and whatnot. Nonetheless, the inventory grew. Some of those are still operating. Our hotels, our memberships are still operating. But the air service hasn't increased. And currently, we're primarily relying on the Korea market. We all know, I just talked about the Japan market. And we'll take anybody and everybody. We all know that the CNMI used to welcome Russians, used to welcome Chinese, used to welcome everybody and anybody at the time. And business was good. Currently, our industry is in absolute desperation mode. Absolute desperation mode. The occupancy and the revenue generated from the occupancy that they're fielding, a lot of the members are fielding, are not covering the nut. We're fielding cash losses. And when you have an industry across the board, you're going to have some winners and some losers from month to month. Like, I may win this month, he may next month, but no month makes a year. And it all adds up at the end of the year to a negative number. And you can only hope for a break-even number or a no cash loss. You're going to end up with a book loss, but if you had depreciation, you might hope for a no cash loss. That's far from achievable at the moment. And so when you have a group of your largest investors on the island suffering like this, that also translates into tax collections, translates into employment, reduction of hours, reduction of ordering food for the buffet, reduction of car rentals, you name it. The entire value chain is impacted. And, to MVA's credit, they are trying extremely hard. But we're also dealing with countries, our source markets, where their carriers are also coming out of COVID, right? I think one of the carriers pre-COVID had 41 aircrafts. To date, they're only able to operate 36 because during COVID, some of their pilots and crews have retired, have not returned, or market demands or routes with significant demand are not enough to keep the aircraft flying at the prescribed numbers per day, odd number of hours per day. If you're an airline, you want like a narrow body, you probably want your aircraft to be flying anywhere between 12 and 14 hours a day, right? To carry the cost of that. Now, if I have only one market that's ready to take an airplane and it's only 6 hours of flying, I'm losing on the other 6 to 8 hours. So maybe I can't deploy. Maybe I cannot justify bringing back a crew or bringing an aircraft out of mothball. So the dynamics there also are playing into the pipeline in terms of how we get our customers. So from the aviation side, there's that struggle. And so when they shoot a route structure, they're going to go where they have the biggest opportunity to generate a positive result, right? And so you'll see that some of those carriers are operating much quicker into Japan because, let's face it, from Korea going to Japan on a foreign exchange, the Koreans have an advantage going to Japan. And so you'll see that pipeline start to return and have robust numbers. Again, we still have our flights, but it's not at the numbers they were before. And I just need you to understand a little bit about that dynamic to understand, well, they're filling up flights to Japan, and why can't they just send the flights over here? It's because of the dynamics of how to deploy an airplane and how to do it profitably. And they're been in mothball for all of COVID. And so I'm not sure if you know it, but aircrafts do carry mortgages and there are costs to park them. And so when you burn through your cash throughout COVID, when you come out of COVID, you have to either go to the bank, you go back to your shareholders and ask for cash to start redeploying, retraining your crew because they've fallen out of compliance, right? Just being parked. And so to start flights back up costs money. And when you have to invest to start a flight, you have to look at a destination that's ready to have you. So again, just want you to keep that in the back of your mind in terms of the dynamic of, oh, well, why don't they just keep adding flights? The reality is they have to shoot the routes that are going to pay for themselves and work within the route network. But for us, we can't pick up our hotels and plop them anywhere else. We can't redeploy to a more profitable market. We can't redeploy to where there's demand. Our owners have sunk investment into the CNMI and have been here for decades. And so our industry is in trouble. And I think we've kind of laid that out in lockstep with the chamber that we need help. We need to go after every market there is, but we really need help because I'm not sure how long some of our members can hang on with losses month over month over month. Keep in mind, there were losses during COVID, year over year over year. So very serious situation. And I think I thank you for all the opportunity to come and share that message. So.
I believe President Joe has his hand up. If you could address it.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend in person, but I had a personal/business travel prearranged. But I did not want to delay this important meeting because, as was laid out by HANMI and Alex, our situation is rather dire, and it's very concerning. And I think it's our duty, civic duty, to share whatever information we have to the legislature and to our government on what the situation is. As we all know, we rely on each other, right? We produce the taxes that fund the government budget and operations, and I'm very concerned, as was already, really, and I hope this meeting is a chance not just for the chamber and HANMI to explain the situation, but really to start a dialogue where we can really talk about solutions. Because I'm solution oriented. Everyone else is. I know you are too, speaker and representative. So I really like to hear every rep that's in this room to ask questions. There's no question that would sound stupid, or just ask, and we'll try our best to share information. But the chamber, I speak on behalf of all the 140 members of the Chamber of Commerce, both small business. I'm a small business owner. I know you have big business in the room as well, but we're all the same. I'm hurting. People may say, "Hey, Joe, Naked Fish is always busy," but I'm down 25%. I don't know how long I can last, honestly. I really don't know how long I can hold on at a 25% reduction in sales. I'm not big business. I don't have a big line of credit. And so a lot of small businesses are calling me, texting me, asking for advice. And I don't have the answers other than we need to find a way to make things work. And so our letter that we had sent out took several months. We've thought about these ideas. And again, it's just a start. We don't have all the answers, speaker. We have suggestions, but I hope you have some ideas also as well, other members, on how to address some of the concerns as laid out, by the Palacios Apatang administration. We get it. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America just like everyone else. But it's also our duty to help our people right before us that are relying on us and expecting us to find the best solution to move us forward. So I look forward to you, Mr. Speaker, asking questions on some of the things we laid out in the letter, and I appreciate your time and all the members there, and Hanmi for joining us. Sizu Smasi, I yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And before we move forward, I'd like to recognize the presence of our chairman of cannabis, Representative Diego Vincent Camacho, our floor leader, Representative Ed Probst, and Representative Roman Beneventi. All right. Any more from the team that want to add? And then we'll open up for questions from the members.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. You already heard probably from the smartest guys that we have coming to the table. But I don't think there's any surprise for any of us that we know like what the situation is. And these guys have been doing it for the longest time. They know what they're telling you is not a fantasy. That's exactly where we're at right now. And really look forward to hearing what any kind of solutions that you have or plans that you have going forward that could support the revitalized economy for us.
Thank you. Ivan, go ahead.
Yeah, just one last thing. This year has been really tough for a lot of businesses. But for us in tourism, we look at our infrastructure, and Alex touched on a bunch of it, not reopening. What's alarming for us is those that are reopened have chosen to close and pull out. And I may be out of I hope I'm not out of line, but I want to talk about the retail segment. If you look at some of the key retailers that we've lost that support tourism, Caranel has pulled out. Certain brands in duty free has pulled out. And these are alarm bells for us because that's critical infrastructure that we use to attract tourism. You'll hear, "Oh, we don't have shopping," but you know what? Duty free had good products. But when the brands are seeing that you're not coming back, they may not either, right? So it's scary. It really is scary. The amount of infrastructure we're losing rapidly. And so I hope we can turn this around before we can lose much more and we can try and get them back to the CNMI. But if we don't do anything to arrest this, we're going to lose a lot of that allow us to attract higher spend customers. And if we do turn it around too late, we may end up being a backpack destination. So we implore you for let's work together and see what we can do to turn this sucker around.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and open it up for questions from the members here in the House. And I'll start with you, Vice Speaker. Oh,
The floor raise your hand, so I'll just yield to the floor for now. Okay, thank you, floor. Good morning, Alex, and to Chamber, HANMI. So I just got this letter from you guys, so I'm just kind of briefly going over it. And a lot of the issues that you guys have pointed out seem to be more of a issue of USCIS. So I'm just wondering, are you guys like basically asking us to come up with a legislative stance on the Chinese visa waiver, or?
We're pointing out in the letter that there's a constant conversation about discretionary parole. And let's put it out there. We've had this conversation going for the course of the last 20 plus years.
You're referring to the CNMI EVS stat, right?
Yeah, so that is something that came out of the last 902 consultations. And so there was a conversation about pulling Russia and Chinese these discretionary parole. And after what took over a course of a month between DC and their arrival here and seeing what was going on the ground, we saw Russia as it was going to be on the chopping block regardless, because of the geopolitical tensions in that timeline. So Russia was going to get knocked off, but the Chinese visa waiver was still discretionary parole was still in flux. There wasn't really a huge concern, if you will, overall various issues. But what took place in the consultations was mitigation, was to mitigate the issues related to birth tourism. And so the reduction of our current discretionary parole from 45 days to 14 days was a direct product of that conversation, that consultation. The upping of tariffs at the Commonwealth Health Center by 300+% was a direct product of that conversation. And then really the discussion about safety issues on the ground and things of this nature were all products of consultations and mitigating the concerns related to Chinese visitors, which is what I think all of us have asked again within that letter, within the conversations that we're having with the administration. How do we not throw out the baby with the bathwater, but have a conversation about the issues related to Chinese on the ground here or coming through the borders? Again, if we were in a total embargo with China, I completely understand we're out. It's done. But when you have this conversation going on where leaders of the United States and other foreign countries are going into China and saying we still need to trade. We can't not trade. We have to keep going. That's a $700 billion trade program between our countries, U.S., China, Europe. Everybody is in a mode of desperation, if you will, as well. And the idea that China isn't buying as much. And, as we've had this geopolitical tension go on over the course of the last year and a half, all countries have been, thumping their chest and pulling the cord on trading. But that's coming to a head because as Australia Prime Minister has recently done, as the US has recently done, as most of Europe has recently done, they've gone back into China to renew the conversation about how do we get past our differences and let's talk about trading again. And it's not just trade and fiscal assets. It is the people to people, as we continually hear from many jurisdictions, many countries. People to people movement is how they can quickly turn on the pipeline. All of the other conversations about soybean and things of this nature, that stuff is well down the pipe, but immediately the one thing that everybody recognizes is people to people transfer, people to people engagement. The tourism is really what it comes down to, is the quick infusement of dollars within all these jurisdictions. Is what's going on in Vietnam, in Europe, in certain areas. China just released a list of 6 countries that they will do visa waiver to. They're going to try it out. And it's sort of the conversation that's going on with other countries about visa vice, right? They'll allow visa waiver for their individuals. Obviously, this doesn't play out with one-way street. These 6 countries have agreed to a visa waiver program between their countries, and it's a test mode. So, long story short, the letter, to answer your question, is the opportunity at this stage to do what everybody's been wanting, even us. We see discretionary parole as the wrong visa for our tourism marketplace. But it was the only opportunity given to us and afforded to us. So we had to obviously seize the opportunity and keep it as best we could, which is why we really wanted to fight for it in the consultations of 902 in the last round. And is why we continually are providing conversations about what are the alternatives. The alternative to discretionary parole is the EVS TAP. It is sitting in USCIS at this stage, and it really only requires some sort of advocacy towards that effort. What is EVS TAP? It is USCIS's response to the 902 consultations about the GOP and the other side of the aisle, and the Democrats talking about replacing discretionary parole. It's the wrong visa to utilize. We agree. Everybody agreed at the table. So they went through the regulatory process. They started it in 2021. In June of this year, OMB went through its last round of review, and basically everybody had any questions, concerns, no questions, no concerns by any department within the federal government. And so this basically sits for implementation, is our understanding. And so we have a legitimate visa for Chinese to enter into the Commonwealth like they are entering into the United States today under tourism visas. So that's what that is at this stage.
That's one. Thank you. Just wanted to, for your information, that the House recently passed, I think it was a Senate joint resolution to reinitiate the 902 talks. So we are aware of our situation, but we thank you also for bringing your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. I now recognize the floor leader.
Thank you. Okay. Anyway, I want to thank you for coming in today, and we've actually been looking forward to this dialogue. It's critical. We know from our conversations with different hotel managers and CEOs and the challenges we've met with some, and it is deeply concerning because it seems that if we don't do something, things will get worse. We've had conversations about, laying off more employees, shutting down larger parts of hotels. It's scary because we are barely surviving right now, and we need, obviously, desperately, tourism. And I guess kind of in line with the Vice Speaker was asking in this dialogue, what my first question would be, what exactly would you want from us, this body, the speaker and the members of this body, to assist you with? How can we assist in moving this forward? Like, what role do you want us to play in this? Is it through House resolutions or through support? That's one question. The other question I have, and I'm sorry it doesn't just pertain to this specifically, but it is nonetheless important, is with all the discussions of how tourism is so bad right now and things, we've sort of lost sight in what we envision Garapan to be. And I say that because no matter with all the improvements, the vast improvements that are being made right now, and I'm grateful for all of that, and we are patient. We know that once it's done, it's going to be fantastic. But we cannot ignore the elephant in the district, and that is the abandoned hotel casino. What I would like dialogue, not just in the future, but starting today, is your ideas and your efforts into what can be done with that, helping us make those decisions, whether it comes to lobbying the CCC to revoke a license or something. What is the alternative that we have to do something about that? Because bare bones, if it's just sitting there rusting and looking terrible, no matter how we put on it, you can't dress it up. It's still a threat. It's still an eyesore, and it is huge. It's the biggest building in Garapan. You can see it from anywhere in the mountains, right? So I would like to request that moving forward, we have serious discussions on how we can address that. So it's important to all of us to address that as soon as possible. That building is a concern. I know the complaints from uh, the existing businesses around that area, and I'll be honest, even shopping at Joe 10 Garapan, I get a little bit scared because what if that crane falls? What if, there's a lot of serious concerns, and our constituents are concerned. We all should be. So I just wanted to put that out there so that moving forward, the Saipan Chamber of Commerce, HANMI, and my colleagues, the speaker and vice speaker, and myself, and all of our colleagues on both sides will be involved in this. Let us know how we can move together in getting this taken care of. So that's it. But my first question stands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, floor leader.
Thank you, floor leader. Probes. Your first question was what can you do? I think you've alluded to the idea that there is a resolution, joint resolution that you've passed. Not sure what the final product was in that passage, but if it was what I understood it to be from the Senate, advocating for that, which you're doing now. The commissioner for USCIS is actually going to be in town in the course of the next few weeks, is that my understanding? And so dialogue with that individual about EBS TAP, about other visas that we're looking at, the idea of Taiwan coming, is it still a product of the visa waiver program that they have to have direct service as in Guam with China Airlines? All of these jurisdictions need to be looked at. Philippines is another conversation. Can we get Can we get visa waiver added to the list? It makes complete sense. It has for a long, long time, but again, we're thankful that Congressman Moylan has recently brought this up as a conversation piece. Congressman, Senator. Sorry, I just forgot his name, but anyways, Senator in Guam recently brought it up as a conversation piece as well. But yeah, having these conversations with leadership within the federal government and advocating for the marketplace, I think is something that would be welcomed. We definitely want to see some dialogue about the concerns. We understand, as everyone's pointed out, we completely understand the geopolitical discussion piece that's going on. But again, if the U.S. is completely embargoed, completely understand, but they are not. They're continually, Secretary Raimondo has been in the region. Secretary Schumer's been in the region. Senator Schumer's been in the region. Governor Galvin Newsom, actually with his visit, increased the quota for direct service into the United States between countries. It was supposed to be 24. It went to 35. It's actually now the conversation piece is they'll be back to over 300 service level in the course of the next year. And so this people-to-people transfer is happening with the United States. What's the argument with the CNMI dealing with it? And mind you, we're not putting our heads in the sand about the issues related to Chinese arrivals. So we've talked about the people on the ground. We have proposed the idea that if Chinese workers are the issue at the table, then let's talk about that. It was ended for Russia. It was ended for investment by Russians as a visa. That's a conversation to have. I mean, we're saying let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is the tourism piece that actually fuels and funds the overall marketplace. The other aspects of things maybe need to be talked about. We restricted workers within the, not we, sorry, the conversation piece at the table was you will no longer have the access to Chinese workers within the H-2B program. And that was ended as a piece in the conversation for all of the H-2B program, and specifically construction, as we talked about. But those are things that were mitigated on the idea that there were general concerns on the ground here. And so we're basically asking for the legislature to have these conversations with leadership within our own government, but also within the federal government, because we do need all source markets at our availability in order to grow this marketplace quicker than we are seeing it today. So, and then to answer your other question, yeah, we've had varying conversations about what the idea could be about that building down in Western Garapan. We agree that we need to move quickly before that deteriorates to a point where we cannot mitigate that construction issue. We're hearing, as maybe you are through the grapevine, that there's concerns about the overall integrity of the facility and its engineering aspect. We know we had conversations with Mace, which is one of the largest engineering firms in the world, who exited that project, and we're concerned at that time, and that was 4 years ago, just before COVID. And so, yeah, we're hearing varying reasons, but the idea of having a small convention center, the idea of, I think that's been proposed by this legislature or the administration about having multiple licenses at 5 million apiece, and spreading out the opportunity. I think, as you all know, as you all realize, we need some revenue driver to pay that global settlement. That's the big issue, I think, for many of us. My father's a retiree, as my uncles and aunts, and many of the individuals in this room have retirees within this market. And so, yeah, our community needs this effort to move forward and quickly. But I think there are ideas to look at, and one needs to be put forward. And then let's champion that. That's the other thing. We need champions to look at these various issues and champion the cause behind what we really want to do, and ultimately decide on it.
If I may, thank you. I think Alex touched on an important note, is that leaders in the U.S. are going directly to China to try and save their economies. In a recent trip to California, it's down in San Diego, it's down in Anaheim, and Chinese tourists are everywhere. And I think that was Newsom that did that basically grew the slots. Pre-pandemic, there was over 128 flights a week, just to, potentially that state. And I think chairman of the CPA, Joe Ajuju, said it correctly. We do need China. We need their throughput. We need their flights to help pay the airport. We need their tourists. But we need more. We need Japan to come back. We're not saying no to any tourist, but the quickest one that can respond is right at our footstep. And so if we can advocate for that waiver of the slots, because as these U.S. states start to get more competitive, they're going to grab those slots. And when we talked about aviation, how airlines deploy flights, do you think they'll make more money flying to the U.S. than flying here? Right? As an airline, they're going to fly that long haul, higher revenue flight to the U.S. Versus our 5 hour or 4.5 hour flight. And so we may get bullied out of slots if we're trying to revive that market, right? And so there was a letter issued asking for the return of our waiver back to pre-pandemic. And I think that's also a good thing if we could get it. That way we don't have to compete for those slots with California and the rest of the world. And so, again, it doesn't matter what nationality stays in the hotel room. As long as that bed is filled, occupancy tax is paid, our employees can get their hours, and the economy moves on and thrives. But we got to do something quick, and we need to work together to go after what can respond the quickest to arrest the current slide that we're all going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Repato, did you have a question?
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning to you guys. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for your letter. Just off the bat, straight question. What's our status with the Chinese government, meaning the cinema as a destination? Well, obviously, we don't know what transpired in the last couple of years. We're I don't know where we are on the list of
We're on
black
an
eye
accepted
market.
destination list. We are accepted.
I understand that part. We're an accepted destination list, but in the Chinese government's perspective, is the cinema even considered for their people to visit?
That list is only released twice a year, and they only add your destination on the list if the government endorses it. So
Sure.
so that's a CNTA list, China National Tourism Administration.
I do understand that, and over 20 years ago, we became the 19th destination of the
Right.
Chinese market, correct?
Right.
But from 2002 to 2018, 19, 20, we didn't, like, especially the last 3 years, we didn't look very good in the Chinese market as a destination because of obviously the casino that was built here and all the financial transactions that we're going through. That's why I asked, just from your perspective, from the tour agencies, obviously Century Tours, right, belongs to Tan Holdings. What's the market like?
So to answer that question and just put the elephant out in the room here, we were banned as a Commonwealth because of the casino, but we were lifted from that ban because of the mitigation that was done related to so what the true law is, which was passed in 2020 by Xi Jinping, was that we couldn't market, the Commonwealth operator couldn't market in country, could not bring Chinese to gamble, could not have workers in the facility, I believe, and we couldn't market packaging within the country. We weren't doing it. Tour operators, the non-gaming tour operators, were not marketing tour gaming within the Commonwealth. Specifically, the entity was doing that. So, because of the fact that let's just put it out there, organization IPI, in effect, is not operating, has not been operating, had not had Chinese workers in the casino, does not technically have a license to operate. For all those varying reasons, the China government recognized that we were not, as the Commonwealth, in country promoting gaming from that entity, and so they took us off the ban and put us back into approved destination status. So the Commonwealth, which was specifically added, so it is the United States And then we're the only territory in the United States that's added a specific jurisdiction for ADS, and it's listed as the Commonwealth or the Mariana Islands, I think is what they put in. So yes, to answer your direct question, we are no longer banned. We are accepted by the China government for approved destination status, and their citizens are able, if they're willing, to travel to the Commonwealth. In fact, we know this because there have been conversations about moving, obviously, aircraft into the region. So yeah.
And may I ask what what was the last airline that flew in directly from China to the cinema? And what year?
I think the last one pulled out in 2020. At the time, the China market was being serviced by Sichuan Air, China Eastern, Beijing Capital, Hong Kong Express, Hong Kong Air, 5 different carriers. I believe 4 of them operated wide body aircraft of 250 and up in capacity, and 1 operated narrow body 7.3s at 180 plus seats. So I think Hong Kong was probably the last one. The China flights pulled first.
Okay, so essentially, this meeting is a precursor to a position of the cinema. It's unfortunate that there's a position by the administration that already came out a few months ago, but other entities within the cinema have mentioned that we do need the China market on top of other markets. If they're available, please come over to the cinema. Right, that's our motto. But we need a true position of the cinema government. Could call it leadership or whatever. We need a true position. Failure to have that true position, we can't go by any means from this body over to their country to entice them to come this way, knowing the fact that the bottom line is there's also another branch that's come with a position. So I think we it's good that we're sitting here together, but I think it's more important that we should be sitting with the administration at the same time, because these, as you mentioned, California's leaderships made their trips out to China to entice them to come over to California. Obviously, they have more amenities over there, but if we can get a quarter of what they're going to be receiving, that's going to help out the cinema, right? It's numbers, foot on the ground. It's the type of tourists that we need. They need different types of tourists, right? So I think it's important that we do have a sit with the administration and talk about this issue, because failure to have a position, we're just rewinding ourselves back to 2012 in regards to our immigration status. There's a full push of that administration against a takeover of immigration of the cinema, but wasn't supported from this branch of the government. Therefore, the cinema had separate positions. I think we have to have a true unified position. We can't let this go. It's unfortunate, right? We had an opportunity to set up true position from the cinema back then in regards to immigration, and we wouldn't be talking about this today because we'd still control our immigration at the very least, had it be negotiated on the table. So we need to get everybody on the table to set a true position in the cinema. We can't just have the private sector to push this and market their businesses out there, because it's going to be unfortunate. We already see that the Chinese tourists are going to Korea just to make their way this way when they can have direct flights. But it has to be a position from the central government to these countries to be able to entice them. We don't write emails, they said. We sit down with these guys and we negotiate. We have opportunities that we can give them. They have opportunities they can give us. I think that's an important thing. But thank you for sending this letter, and I thank the speaker for getting this meeting together. I know that we've been trying to get this earlier in the year 2023, but we're here today. The holiday season is coming, and I think it would have been great to see a lot of these tourists come in for the holidays and see what we're building here in the cinema. So in a couple of years, they can they can see the fruits of the labors that are being set in 2023. But no further questions. Just I think it's important that we all sit on the same table and have a true position in regards to the cinema and all these potential countries to consider the cinema as a destination. We can't market ourselves at the Marianas because we're not. Guam uses the same marketing name, right? They call themselves the Marianas. So they say, oh, we're all one Marianas. We're really not one Marianas. It costs more money for Saipan residents or Sinamay residents to fly to Guam than for them to get to Guam and fly to the Philippines, fly to Korea, fly to the United States. So we're really not one Marianas. We need to make sure that if we're gonna work this out, that we get the true flights. The numbers on the planes are not gonna make the difference of the destination. It's really the cargo. That's why we had the garment industry. They didn't care about having 10 people on a plane because they knew that all the cargo's there, right? So number of hours, sure, maybe now if we're talking about bodies on the plane, but if we have industries that are potentially able to expand over here, it's not going to be the number of seats on the plane that's being filled. It's going to be the cargo that they're bringing here or the cargo that they're taking out of here. So I think let's do that. This is our first step. Let's take bigger strides together, and hopefully we can come with a true position from the central government and the private sector to push our cinema forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Atto. Go ahead, Brad.
Hi, thank you. Rep Atal, that sounded like a great solution. And I would ask, what is the most appropriate way to take that next step? When you said it's a good idea to have everybody so we have a unified position, what is the best and most appropriate step to have the House, the Senate, and the administration at the table with organizations like HANMI and the Saipan Chamber of Commerce?
Well, I think the administration set a position a couple of months ago, right? But that doesn't mean that that's set in stone. Because if we're not going to sit on the same table with the administration to kind of figure this stuff out, it's already out there and it's exposed that the administration is against the Chinese tourists, for example, right? So it doesn't matter if the legislative body jointly supports the Chinese market. We've already been through this back with immigration. The administration came out in full force against the federal takeover on immigration, but yet the position of the legislative body did support that. So the CNMI was cut in two. So it's easier for whatever the powers that may be back then to make a decision this way. But if we can have a true unified position of the CNMI, we can actually push that agenda all the way up to DC. And it's useless for us to adopt a joint resolution in support of this market or that market when the administration's going to DC and saying we want to go a different route. But that's why it's important that we sit with the administration. Nothing's etched in stone. The CPA board is just now, I think they're a quorum now, right? They're a full body right now. They've already mentioned that it's a need. They need the airlines to get here. We need the tourists for the HANMI to succeed, and for the chamber to succeed. Everybody else succeeds. It's going to be a funnel. It's going to be tentacles. It's going to reach down to the lower tiers, and the lower tiers spending their money. The Commonwealth government collects better, have better collections. There's more importations, excise tax increases. It's going to help everything in general, but we have to be on the same page. Failure to do that, we're only going to be repeating the past. And it's unfortunate, but nothing's etched in stone. Immigration, they kind of etched that in stone pretty quick. With this one, there's opportunities. And I think we can still sit, and with the little resources that we have, we can work with the chamber and HANMI to put our resources together to get to that destination and hopefully entice them to come this way. Maybe with one or two airlines that will be landing in the cinema. But I think first step, we have to go that route.
So, was it about a month and a half ago? Was it 2 months ago? We went with HANMI to the governor's office and had just a quick meeting and briefing with him where he made a lot of his points clear about that and it's really understandable. But he also expressed the need to have more people wrapped into that kind of a meeting, maybe having a summit with MVA involved, with the chamber involved, with HAMI involved, and maybe that involves representatives and senators alike. So, would a forum like that make sense to you if we ended up getting something like that together? I mean, probably at the urging or at the organization level from the governor, from his office to put that stuff together. But is that something that you see as a next step that makes sense for this?
I think it makes sense, but we also got to remember that timing is everything. And a lot of the decisions that we're going to make here is not going to hold much water because at the end of the day, 8,000 miles away, decisions can be made to overturn positions that are being done here or made here. So we can't just sit here and believe that we have the best destination as a unit 8 months down the road when within that period there's a decision that's made in DC and that just cuts us off really quick. No. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Attao. Representative Marissa Flores. And
Thank you, Speaker. It's always hard going after BJ because he really does incorporate and express the historical um, value to why we're here. But I will speak on behalf of my sentiment and what I believe in. And I do wholeheartedly agree that 902 is very much needed now. A unified message to the federal government about how we could become economically sustainable. One of the things that we need is our immigration, period. And I'd like to ask, I guess, whoever went to the 902 the last time during your advocacy and the time of questioning, why didn't you guys just go in gung ho and say, we want our immigration? Let's talk about that. Why were we still continuing to be kind of like, curtsying to what they want when we all know in here that immigration is crucial to our economic stability? Crucial. So I just like to understand why wasn't that addressed at its forefront back then? My first question.
Okay. Since I was at the table, I'll just play out. Timing is everything. I think somebody brought that up, right? Timing is the situation that we were playing out. And, I go back in the historical perspective, through through all of the sessions that we had in having Congresswoman Christensen, um, have a session here in relation to the federalization and takeover back in 2007, 8. We knew that the inevitable was coming down the pike, even though, and I just want to put out that even though at the time that we had federalization happen to us, for all of the reasons that were reported over the course of the 30 plus years, the apparel industry was in play in the Commonwealth, which, this is not an excuse. This is not a reason why we should have continued to, not deal with the situation. But for the same reasons we had problems with the apparel industry, so were the same problems happening elsewhere in many other jurisdictions, to include the United States. But all said and done, we put out all of our messaging. We put out all of our concerns. We put out all of the relatable data that was at that stage apparent to us. We had the best immigration system in the United States at the time, which OIA paid for. If you all recall the LIDS program, that was paid for by OIA, introduced into the program. We knew everybody coming in and going out by virtue of this system. Frank Strassheim from OSHA was here handing out awards to all of the industry. The big four were here auditing every single apparel industry. This is history, I know. I'm just trying to play out the why. Even if you put the best information forward with an organization, Rep Atol puts it very eloquently, they make a decision, they're making a decision. There's not a lot we can do to change it. So to answer your direct question, there is a consultation. There are agreements on both sides of what to speak about initially. So those pre-meetings that are done, and this is what was put forward. The only thing that was put forward, and I totally agree with you that we've had those conversations about justifying all of what I just played out with statistics and where the Commonwealth was, and the idea behind federalization really didn't need to happen in 2008 because the apparel industry was out the door anyways. WTO took care of that. And many other things took care of a lot of the problems that we are dealing with. But the political gamesmanship, for lack of a better term, was playing out in that timeline, and it won out with the Senate initiating and the House concurring, and federalization happening to a jurisdiction that was doing well at the time, very well, in fact, in overall perspective of immigration and all of those concerns of that timeline in the past. So that's my statement to it. Timing is everything, I guess.
Thank you, Alex. And, and again, we can all agree, right, that we want the best for our Commonwealth, regardless of what that is. And I do think that the sentiment now is we would be better off if we had our immigration. We wouldn't be here today had that not taken place, but it took place. And so now that we're here, we need, as Rep. Attel said, we need to come together as a unified voice and really sit down and present ourselves in a matter in which we know best for us. Otherwise, they can come here and stay here for about maybe 2 years, see how they like it. We're in a very isolated, remote area that relies heavily on Uncle Sam's money if we don't have sustainability. And until that happens, we will always be at his mercy. I'm grateful, don't get me wrong. Thank goodness for Big Brother, or else really we'd probably be like some other third world country and, living in houses that are submerged in water, for all we know, right? But I love the idea of a unified voice. Maybe a think tank would work. My second comment is, in regard to, I know HANMI's here, the Hotel Association, you guys have been in existence for a while, and I know that Airbnb has been one of the biggest issues. Has HANMI ever considered having an umbrella association that would include Airbnb, so that when they pop up and decide to open a business, HANMI will then certify them as a legit Airbnb business? So that, because one of the things we got out of Japan was that safety was a big concern. And Rev and Tax has done their stakeouts, and half of them are addressed as Airbnb, but they're never open. So, those are one of the things that I'd like to propose, maybe an umbrella under HANMI, and you guys can work with NBA, certify the certificate, give them a number, so that you guys all know you guys are all together in this business. I think the only other thing, again, is, everything is a domino effect. We understand that. We get that. But just like the businesses and the hotels are hurting, every single person in the Marianas is hurting. Families, individuals, the children, you name it. And we need to really come together this time so that we can ensure 10 years, 15 years down the line, we're not having these same discussions. Our kids will not have the same discussions. That's my only concern. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry if I get a little bit too passionate when I speak. It's just that I've been around historically, I was here when all of this transpired. I was 22 years old. I'm going to be 50 soon, and we're still here having the same discussions, talking about it over and over and over again. I'm not sure how much more we can say. to fix this. But I hope that we can work together, come to a unified um, message, so that we will stand strong as a Marianas, as a people, and say, no, we need this. Without this, we will not be able to be economically sustainable, period. No if, ands, or buts. And we have to stick to our guns this time. So thank you again. My apologies for being way too passionate about this. I'm just, I think I'm going to die and nothing's going to happen. So I hope that whatever it is that I'm conveying to you guys is, let's work together. Let's ensure that there's going to be sustainability for our children moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Flores. Yes, Ms. Kimberly. Yes. Yeah. I was about to recognize him. President Joe Guerrero. I apologize. You were on a roll, and I didn't want to break the. And you said to ask questions, so.
intention. So that EVS tab just requires the lobbying of our Congressman Kilili, our legislature and the administration, because that EVS tab came out of 902, the last 902, and all it needs is funding. UCIS cannot implement that without funding, and we've asked Kilili, his office, to lobby for funding, and so it's where it's at right now. There's no lobbying effort for funding. Secondly, in our letter, we've talked about other issues, right? Maybe we restrict our CW and only have Chinese or not allowing Chinese CW workers. So these, we're going out on a limb here, and we're actually, willing to concede. The business community is willing to give up certain things for the greater good of everybody and addressing the concerns. So please, members, if you have a chance, look into that letter, and we hope that's just the start of some of the real ideas. And before lastly, Representative Flores, as you may be aware, our covenant gives the unilateral right, as many of you know, for the federal government to take over immigration. So that was what our founding fathers, negotiated in the covenant, that the U.S. at some point in time could take over immigration. It's maybe not what we like, but it is what it is. And so uh, maybe the 902 could provide some avenue to discuss immigration matters. But um, we have, I'm really excited about this meeting here today, and the dialogue that will continue afterwards. So again, thank you, representatives. And I look forward to more questions from the other representatives there. Thank you. I yield for now.
Thank you, Joe. I now recognize the chairman of our PUTC committee, Representative Vincent Odan.
Good morning, HANMI and SCC, right? Thank you for coming over, and sorry for being late and whatnot. But so this, I understand that this immigration issue has been like forever and a day, right? And it goes along with the casino gaming and whatnot, where a lot of countries are restricting their citizens to travel abroad to gamble and whatnot. So that's also you know a dead horse right there. And I did attend the CPA meeting regarding their Recondo and Association you know, report, and the bottom line is the number of heads or passengers that comes in, that is what's going to make an impact. And that's common sense. You don't have people coming in, you're not going to have a whole lot of money circulating in the economy. So bottom line is just the number of people. So are we, the reason why I'm concerned about the quantity, because for me personally, and business wise, I think that quality is always better than quantity. And especially for us here in the CNMI, because I worry about our infrastructure, for the utility, the transportation, the environment. I remember when I first came back, there was a lot of tourism, from the Chinese market, a lot. But was it a positive impact? Financially, yes. Environmentally, no. And the reason why I say that, because there were a couple of times in the news where you have Chinese tourism or tourists coming here, driving on the wrong side of the road, driving all the way, all on beaches that they're not supposed to be driving, even driving it into the ocean, and then getting stuck. I'm not sure about anybody else, but I'm pretty sure that that's not good for the environment. So I'm always preferring, the quality over the quantity. And if, like, for right now, CUC itself, okay, could only produce what, if I'm not mistaken, 45 megawatts of power, and not all hotels are connected to CUC, right? Not every business is connected to CUC for that matter. But yet the law states that every business and hotel should be connected to CUC. And I also understand that the price of CUC is not, beneficial to any business or to, residential for that matter. And the grid was designed to handle over 80 megawatts of power. But yeah, we're not even halfway there. 40 is pushing it. And, if we have more tourism coming in, it overwhelms the system. And then you have a system crash. Then hotels have to go back to providing their own power. And so that's what I'm worried about, is the quantity. Yes, China is a great market. It's a big market. There's a lot of potential. But at the same time, me personally, I do not want, and I don't think anybody would want a Chinese tourist that comes in here, with $500 in their pocket, and goes to Joten and buys a cup of noodle and eats it in their hotel room, by somebody that comes in with $10,000 and goes to a good restaurant and spends it there. I mean, back then when we had the Russian market, when they come in, they don't come in for a day or two or three or a week. Sometimes they stay here for months, and those are the kind of quality tourism that we would like to have. But being geopolitical wise, that's beyond our control. And I'm just trying to throw this out there because somebody did bring it to my attention. There was an investor that's he's here. He's investing. He opened up his own business, and he remembered back in the day, and he reminded me about having the sports industry. Be it baseball, soccer teams coming over here and do their summer camp here. Those organizations, they stay for months. They don't stay for 5 days and then go back. They stay here for months. And then not only that, their news media outlet comes over here, and reports their whatever on their sports channel and whatnot. So instead of just trying to get regular old weekly a week tourism, why can't we go out there and advertise and be partners with these type of organizations? And it's a family oriented tourism. It's not gambling, you know what I mean? And it's not just for adults. So like let's say, back then when you had the Kentetsu's buffalo that was here, you had the news media from Japan coming over here. You had, baseball fans that were coming over here just to watch their favorite player or favorite team, practice. That's quality, tourism. And because I, for one, I'm not in favor anymore of just raising taxes all over the place. Because that's like seems like the only option we have. And manufacturing, it overwhelms the system again. If we try to, like look at back then when the garment came in, the landfill got filled up real quick. They had to close it down. EPA was all over us. So we had to like open up, a landfill. If we bring in any other kind of manufacturing that produces so much waste, where are we going to put it? The lifespan of our landfill would be shortened. Yes, we would love to export all kinds of goods that is grown and produced and manufactured here, but yet at the same time minimizing whatever imports comes in, and that also is expensive, logistics wise. So I'm just worried about if are we trying to push quantity over quality, and at the same time, you know, are we being responsible enough to maintain and take care of our infrastructure, and at the same time protect our environment? Because if we have good quality, investors that do come in, hopefully, like let's just say for a baseball team, they come in and stay at your hotels, right? And their national, part of their pastime is golfing, diving, shopping, but not any other, sinful extracurricular activity. Like back then, they had like strip clubs all over the place. I mean, you go into the jungle and you find one. But I'm glad we got rid of that. Why? Because it wasn't good for our local, community. It broke homes. So I'm just, asking, are we looking for quantity or quality? And can we protect our infrastructure and our environment? And, I would like to have an economy that is family oriented. I'm not all for gambling either, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we're going to throw it out the window, but maybe put it in the basement and let it marinate for a little while, but have a little here and there, but not a big monstrosity over there with, false hope. And now we're left with garbage that is not good for the environment. Because if you go down to, like I'm waiting for it to become, the hot season again and try to walk around Garapan area, and it's going to start smelling like urine on a hot day. That is not attractive to tourism. And at the same time, we have to work together to make sure that all those entities that are conducting business in our central, location, that they clean up their act. You go into between every building and there's garbage, and it is up to us to work together to hold them accountable and to report them. I live right behind Happy Market, and I just got so tired of the owner of that business piling up their garbage right next to our road. And every time I pass by the road at night, I see island squirrels running all over the road, to their garbage or from their garbage. And guess what's happening down in our central tourism district? You got saipan squirrel that's the size of a cat. Why? Because it's filthy. How can we consider ourselves, to be that number one destination when we cannot even clean up our own yard? I mean, it's ridiculous. We want quality tourism. We have to have quality destination, quality environment, just quality everything. We make it nice and they will come. But who wants to come to a garbage place and smells like urine? on a hot day. But yet you got nice beaches. But when that wind blows, you might have a good place, but it smells like, so I hope that we do come together and talk about quality vice quantity, and at the same time protect our environment and hold each other accountable and responsible to go out there and enforce the things that we need to do to be number one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Any comments?
Yeah, let me just take a stab at that. Yeah, definitely, Congressman. Industry, chamber, HANMI, former organization and previous administration, we're all talking about quality over quantity. That's absolutely what we want. And so to play that out, as I mentioned, in this timeline, the people that are traveling from China here who are going through transit points are paying a premium. They are staying in patterns longer than the norm, in large part the 14 days. They're spending money on the ground. The Korean marketplace is family oriented, as you know, and we're hopeful that the Japanese return in those numbers and in that realm of family oriented travel and quality over the quantity aspect. At this stage, though, we are hoping that we can get our numbers back just to the pre-COVID numbers at even 426,000. I mean, that's the hope and kind of the dream of all of the operators that are basically sucking wind right now because there is no ability to make over 30% occupancy in these hotels. And so, yeah, I mean, we are hoping that MVA will continue to have the funding needed to go out and market. Just to be informal, we have a college team from Korea that will be here in the spring. We have a lot of requests. We've only got one field, but we do and are getting sports tourism conversations going because we do have a large soccer pitch in the south. We have a baseball field that's finally back up and operational from the Pacific Mini Games timeline. Thankful to Uncle Sam, as noted, and federal government and this administration. They were able to, put that back together, and we are seeing facilities return to even better than what they were when they first built them, like our basketball court in the Gilbert C. at a gymnasium. And so we are getting sports organizations interested in conducting tournaments here. 3v3 is going to happen here with FIBA. We are going to get AFC and EAFF teams coming out here to train with our kids and our national teams. We are going to see baseball teams come in, and hopefully we'll get Little League going again, and we'll be, going to the tournaments and the World Series eventually. Sorry. Badminton as well. From the Pacific Mini Games, a lot of what occurred in that timeline was we trained up a lot of our local folk here to be refs and officiators, and we bought equipment that make us in the region one of the top locations to conduct tournaments because we have the assets and we have the people. And so badminton, which is a very big sport in Asia, is getting a lot of effort putting tournaments here. We just had one recently for the Olympic trials conducted over a 2-week period. So yeah, a lot's coming from the opportunities that were played out in recent timeline. But yeah, to your point, our infrastructure absolutely needs to get back up and running as quickly as possible. We need to get back our 80 megawatt capacity. We need the spinning reserves, right? If we're 45 cap, then we need at least the 40 or 35 megawatt spinning reserves to mitigate the weather and the growth, hopefully, that will come with development that comes. And we've talked about this even back in the chamber position in recent timeline. adopting the Lados report and that process in mitigating the procurement and the selection process and the array of renewables and whatever type of power generation we're going to need in fossil fuel. But the one thing that we have continually pointed out is if we believe wholeheartedly that if we do not follow Guam's power generation program, we're going to get left behind as future fuels become available in the region. They're going to a dual purpose, dual mode unit with fossil fuels and LNG. While LNG today is not cost effective to store, we believe, everybody believes down the line that there will be an ability to do so and cheaply. And so, we have obviously shared the shipping. One vessel comes in, they drop off fuel. That is a shared approach to bringing fuel into this region for our fossil fuel power generation. But going down line, if it is LNG and we do not have hybrid units installed, we might get left behind paying for a very expensive LSADO, fuel generation, fossil fuel generation power plant. So those are those observations that we've made. We've asked CUC board for consideration in implementing the Lados process. We believe that's how you're going to get past the, 6 procurement attempts to deal with the problem of our power plant. And we have done the simple math to your point made about bringing everybody onto the grid. I think all anybody really wants to see is good power. A lot of the reason people are off grid is that we're not getting clean power. And interestingly enough, recently Guam put out, Attorney General Moylan put out the fact that they are going to reimburse people for losing air conditioning and microwave. I just lost my microwave this year. I lost an air conditioner this year. I mean, many families watching this probably are in the same mode, but you're not turning in a reimbursement to CUC for that. They're just not going to entertain it. But that's dirty power. And so, we all know that. They've admitted to it. They understand the conditions of their power generation plant. But to the point I wanted to make about the numbers, we've done the numbers in the realm of what if you got a new power plant with other people's money and put it in and implemented it, based on their own reports, they're burning between 30 and 35% of the fuel up in smoke because they're so inefficient. If you just took that measure of 9 and implemented it into the overall cost structure, we may come out ahead. But even if we don't, we all believe that it is going to be a zero-sum game in effect, right? It will come out even. We'll still have the same bills, but we're going to have a brand new, reliable, efficient, and clean power generation plant in our Commonwealth finally. And that's all we've all been looking for the course of the last 20 plus years that we've been talking about this. So yeah, all of what you point out, we all agree with. It's been a conversation we've had at the table for many, many years. And to the point everybody's coming together and having conversations about what makes sense and how we can move forward, I think is the place to go. Ivan, you had a point.
If I can talk about the quality tourist, right? So, just by the numbers, the on the ground spend for the China market is number 1 in terms of on the ground spend in restaurants, rented cars. A lot of the hotels also have matrices. And it was through the China market that many of the hotels were able to push the room rates up, which means higher tax collection. A lot of the China market, because they came in last, paid the higher rates, right? The travel patterns for that market is on average 4.5 to 5.5 nights, whereas the Japan market was a 3, currently is a 2-night pattern. The Korea market is 3 to 4 nights. So they stay longer. They consume more, and every market has an upper end and a mid and a family. When we talk about the family market, and when we even talk about the quality market, right, there's a certain infrastructure required to attract them. are there enough activities for 6-year-olds to 12-year-olds, right? What are we offering them? For the quality spenders, we're losing infrastructure, right? We're losing the luxury boutiques. We lost Caranel, which is the luxury watches. Um, we've lost Cartier. Um, the submarine, which probably would be in that family market segment, um, is shelved until we can get any meaningful volume. I think that the capacity of the sub is 50 some, and at our peak it was running 12 dives a day or 8 dives a day, but we don't have the volume to support the infrastructure. And as long as we don't achieve a meaningful volume to support our infrastructure, it will continue to erode away. We're going to have excess power for a long time if we can't do that. So, just trying to throw by the numbers, by the statistics. Golfers, they tend to spend business class seats, the higher room rate, but a lot of the times they want a night activity as well after the golf. They want that 19th hole, they want that bar, they want that experience, right? Earlier in the conversation, Alex said there's nothing to do after 7 p.m. So again, we talk about the dynamics required to maintain and attract and sustain. And I like what Congresswoman Flores said, sustainable, right? Because we need industry to be able to be sustained in order to, the chicken or the egg. We have to have these things in order to attract. If we don't have them, then we become less attractive. And so we keep losing infrastructure to the point where we are going to be pigeonholed into only certain categories because there's not enough infrastructure for the family, for the golfer. Even though we have golf courses, the night activity also, there's a certain segment. Or the golfer that brings the family and, wife, go shop. Well, there's nowhere to shop, right? Or there's not the product that she wants. And so we'll take any and all tourists, any and all of them. And every market has quality at the top and in the mid. And so it's just holding the tourist accountable, right? For instance, Korea has such a wonderful subway system and public transportation. Many of their drivers get their driver's license in high school and never use it for 10 years. Then come here and rent a Mustang, a Camaro, and drive on the sidewalks. They're not all Chinese, my friend. Okay, so we gotta keep things in perspective. Tourism, we're gonna get the good with the bad, but really we have infrastructure to address those that don't go right. Let's just say, right? That's what the police are for. That's what that's what we all do is try to tell them, don't drive a Mustang on up Mount Tapacha. Remember that commercial before? Because you're going to get stuck and you're going to block people. And so we just need to get our numbers back up. And overall, MVA, HANMI, the chamber, we all want better tourists. We all want responsible tourists. We all want better spending tourists. But between where we're at today and what we'd like to do, we have a lot of work to do in order to arrest the situation and the erosion of our infrastructure and our ability to attract tourists. And so thank you for those comments. I just wanted to throw that out to kind of clarify that.
All right. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Alex. I now recognize the Chairwoman of Commerce and Tourism, Representative Julie Ogo.
Thank you, everyone, Saipan Chamber and HANMI members for today's discussion and presentation of your concerns. In line of Rep. Atto and Rep. Flores and most of the members in here, it is very important that we have a unified voice, with the administration and the legislature, and of course, the private sectors itself. Um, a lot of this issues brought forward, will require or points for discussion in the 902. Um, we are well aware of all the issues brought forward in today's meeting, and especially as a chairwoman for commerce and tourism, it is a very hot seat that I'm sitting in. I'm new in this legislature, and I feel intimidated knowing that you guys have a vast knowledge background of the economy in Saipan and throughout, of course, the Marianas. As a representative of Rhoda, we feel the pain because tourism is not non-existing in Rhoda right now. So we always have to, explore other avenues to generate revenue. And still believe that we can, other than tourism, bring in other revenues. I do feel for, the organization stance as far as the China tourist market, but it is very important to be unified as one voice. It's all about timing, like Rep. Atal said. Um, Also, in regards to the comment from Rep. Flores about the Airbnb, there is a law that's been amended back a couple years ago, where now Airbnb is paying the hot tax. So they are part of the hotel occupancy tax payers. So it is something that maybe has to be looked into and make them be included into that organization. Um, One of the subjects that either Ivan or Alex brought up is sports tourism, which is that's another avenue that we can look into, and also throughout the cinema road, and maybe have them rotate, not just Saipan, but rotate that tourism industry within the cinema. One of the concerns that I have, if I was a tourist coming, trying to travel out, what do I look for? I look for Saipan itself, or the cinema, I'm sorry, for the cinema as a whole. Culture and tradition is something that we can, share the experience of the Marianas. If we're going to take a tour trip out into the tourist sites, are you pleased with what you see? I don't. I've taken a lot of videos and pictures, shared it with MVA. Said, here we are trying to convince, to bring in tourists from all over the world, but this is what we have to present. We need to clean up our island, our house, before we bring them in. And I'm glad that MVA did sign an agreement with Parks and Rec to to collaborate in cleaning up the tourist site. One of the things that we need to be also up to par as far as technologies is concerned. In Japan, I've never been to Japan, but I did ask my vice chair to represent on my behalf because my passport expired actually just last month. One of the things that I was looking at is I know we have the tablets throughout the tourists, expressing or stating the historical background of that tourist site. In Japan, there is this QR code now. They just put a post, and then all they have to do, everyone has a cell phone. I don't know of anyone that doesn't walk around with a smartphone. All they had is just click on the QR code, and it just, it shares all the historical background of that, of that monument or tourist site or whatnot. Again, there's so many things that we need to, address here in the cinema. And it's just unfortunate that we are in this predicament right now. I know there's also issue with the touchback. Is something that we have to work with. Here we are again bringing tourists, but are we able to be able to have enough workforce in the hotels? With these touchbacks, being everybody, most of the foreign workers are leaving the island. How are we going to address that? That's part of the 902 discussion too. So with this resolution that the legislature has, we've passed in the House and the Senate, we hope that will happen soon. And then we can, sit back down again and, have a more productive, more valuable discussions on what we can do again in the cinema. Thank you for your time again, and hope to see you guys again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Um, we'll go ahead and did you have anything to comment on that, Alex?
Yeah, specifically, you bring up kind of near and dear to our hearts is we have investment in Rhoda, obviously, and so we're very concerned about inter-island travel, which is why we've put forward our conversations with our last visit into DC over EAS, Essential Air Service. We absolutely believe that we are a candidate for that program again. Because of the limitations that we have within the inter-island movement. And, we believe that there is a need to subsidize that. Paying $150 to go to Tinian is, we're crazy. But we understand if there's a cost structure to moving those planes and paying the fuel, just as we were paying that FAC at CUC, there's a cost structure. We all have to deal with that. But here are the opportunities. There are many jurisdictions within the United States that have over 102, I believe, that have essential air service capability, and we just need to be added to the 902 conversation to put us on that list so that we have the ability. We met with DOT. They have the money to implement us. It would be very simple. We're not an extreme amount of dollars in the overall thick of things, right, in comparison to the U.S. mainland. And so for all those reasons, they felt as well compelled to supporting the effort. But because legislatively we are not included within the EAS, and we had an opportunity to do it in 2012, and we had competitive airlines at the time, so we were not candidates. But in this timeline, in this realm, we believe EAS is a perfect opportunity to pushing a 902 conversation and putting that as a consultation effort. But your overall conversation about things in general, yes, we're thankful MVA has an agreement with OPD and Parks and Recs, and that $1.4 million will go towards addressing some of the tourist sites, but not all the tourist sites are going to get addressed. And so we still have Rhoda, Motsong, many other sites in Rhoda and Tinian and Saipan, and we need additional funding for that. And so we're going to have to go after more grants. To the point you made about IT, not MBA, well, MVA indirectly, but NMHC has a CDBG grant that has $7.5 million for global marketing. To the extent that we could use the funding to put some type of IT program in utilizing that, it's been kind of ridiculous, but we have not had the ability to tap that money to a certain degree. But if this is a way we could tap it, I'd venture to say that somebody needs to put the effort forward to writing up the grant idea and getting access to that $7.5 million to implement IT approach to our tourism effort, especially since our numbers are way down in communicative aspects, interpreters, people out that can speak the language. If we are going to wipe out CW for Chinese workers, then we're going to need AI and iPads and many other things to augment that issue of not having the human component in tourism. So yeah, many things we need to work on. We're always open to the conversation, especially in commerce and tourism, of which I chair in the chamber. So hopefully we can have conversations down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And one more from Representative Marissa Flores, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I guess I just have a question and a comment. How many tour agents do you have registered or are a part of the commerce nonprofit?
With Chamber of Commerce? Yeah. Technically, all of the major groups like your JTBs, your Century Tours, So all of the larger groups are Chamber of Commerce organizations that are product of the chamber. There are a lot of smaller entities, so we don't necessarily have that. I think there was a conversation put forward about Airbnb, for an example. They're technically not a part of their organization. And it's my understanding in conversations we had at the fiscal summit in previous timeline that there wasn't a lot of these organizations paying into the system at 15%, which is the point that we wanted to make about how do we enforce that aspect of it, right? So supposedly there is a law, or there is a piece of legislation that's floating about incorporating that specific language for the actual organizations, so that there is a component to being able to collect from third party organizations into the system. And like we put out in the fiscal summit, the examples that were put out in Hawaii, in Puerto Rico, in Virgin Islands, in California, in New York and Texas, which was basically, I'm not Texas, which in New York and California, which have wiped out Airbnbs because they're impacting housing. But the one thing that they did do was they put the time in, as we have done in recent past, to count all of the people that are online, to notate where those jurisdictions are. And the simple request was have letters put out to, like Hawaii did, 10,000 letters to or organizations within Hawaii that laid out that you are engaged in Airbnb, cease and desist, and prove that you don't owe us back taxes on specific, and so they can't, Puerto Rico pays somebody to track it online, as an example. And it's the money by paying that individual to be online to track it is well worth the taxation lost by virtue of not collecting. And I think President Joe did a calculation in one realm. I think it was a little high, but maybe he's right. At over 1,000 sites, we're losing near $6 to $10 million in taxation, hotel occupancy tax, by virtue of the way the marketplace has changed dramatically. What's happening is tourists are coming in and they're going to Airbnb guest houses first, and then they're getting their hotel experience by doing the day or two, if they even have that. And I call them the suitcase posses, because that's what we see, right? They're walking along the road and they're going to the major conventional hotels, and they're spending their last day or two at these hotels to get the experience. But that's the makeup of our marketplace right now. That's what we've been relegated to answer Congressman O'Dunn's question. The issue is that we're getting not so well-to-do family and not so well-to-do tourism marketplace that is having to do this to make a trip out here.
Thank you, Alex. And I guess now that I know that, then my comment is, there's different types of categories of tourism, right? You have your leisure, you have your business, you have we count our outbound, inbound, what have you. One of the things that has never changed is this standard, right? We've always kind of sold ourselves short and had these substandard types of activities. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we always talk about public and private collaboration. But yet when you talk about the chamber and you talk about HANMI, there's a disconnect between the big corporate and the smaller businesses. What I'd like to see is more of you guys getting together and start figuring out ways to sell these packages when you're talking about family-oriented activities, when you're talking about, family tourism, shopping tourism, cultural tourism, leisure, sports tourism, rural tourism, mountain tourism, urban tourism, and there's so many. But we're so small that we kind of just kill each other at the process of doing this. I'm going to capitalize on this market because I'm the biggest travel agent. I've got the money, and then all these other smaller ones are going out and piecemealing, right? Rather than sharing the pie, you have these bigger corporations kind of just taking over and just blocking it like this. But if you have these collaborative efforts and say, okay, I don't know what travel agent you have, but one will focus on just children activities, the other one will focus on shopping, right? It sounds far-fetched, but we are only 15 miles long. Well, let's just take out erosion, we're probably 13 at this moment. But there has to be a way where we can just all kind of complement each other. I heard a story the other day, and I'm almost done, speaker. There was a Japanese older couple that came here to retire. Unfortunately, we don't have a hospice or a nursing home available to this type of market. And they ended up at the Hyatt. They're very rich people, ended up at the Hyatt and stayed there on a daily basis, kind of just, absorbing and taking, enjoying the room service and whatever Hyatt has to offer. And this couple, the father had passed, left. The wife did not want to go back. She wanted to stay at the Hyatt. She wanted to be a part of this community because this is all she knew. I mean, let's just, if we could think outside of the box and say, okay, is that even possible? Can we do that? Because there's a market niche for that. There's a market niche for everything. And then my last comment is, we have all of these hotels here. We've got some laws already instituted, and there's, it's there, but we just seem to be selling hotel experience, but we're forgetting that it's a luxury to do business here in the CNMI. What I like to see is more hotels start stamping their hotel with the Saipan logo on it. Crown Plaza, Saipan. Hyatt Regency International, Saipan, or Commonwealth. Because then that resource is spread amongst everybody. We collect from using that royalty and that name, we turn around and give it back to the community. But right now, we don't have that. You guys have signature drinks that you sell. Sell it by the cup or the whatever it is that you guys have. Crown Plaza, signature drink, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, Saipan, something. What I see is these little ribbons made that are packaged in a cup like this, but the cup doesn't have Crown Plaza, Saipan, Hyatt Regency International, Saipan. But I see a ribbon that says Hyatt Regency, Saipan. Merchandise is big. I'm pretty sure you guys get your shampoos and stuff from a big Chinese factory. It wouldn't hurt if you put Saipan on it and start branding, because we are the Commonwealth. We're not just the beach. We're not just historical value. We're not just people. We are an island of people, of businesses, of institutions. So, in order for us to help you, you also need to help us. And if branding is going to be a big issue, then I highly recommend, check out how much it's going to cost to brand some of those items you guys got at your hotel. Because in order for us to help you, we're going to have to need something too. And our people just cannot, you're right, we're going to need more than the local market. We've just been utilizing the same money over and over again that we're just not going to go anywhere. We need new money. We need investment. So invest back into the Commonwealth by selling merchandise so that we too can also, the community can also enjoy the fruits of your business, because it is a luxury to do business here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
Thank you, Chairwoman Marissa. We actually have a law in place when it comes to using that name. Unfortunately, the regulations hasn't been promulgated, and this law has been in place for years. Again, to help promote the CNMI and also promote more local businesses too as well. So that's another conversation for another time with another agency. But that's a really, really good ideas. And
But
with
just
that,
just for the
yes,
record,
yes.
the two organizations you did mention actually do brand most, if not all, of our collaterals. Crown Resort, uh, Crown Plaza Resort, Saipan, High Regency, Saipan. Those are the two organizations I know of on the island that actually brand most of its collaterals. And we're talking about the stuff you get in the room to stuff in the gift shops. We have iShop in our facility that does have Saipan products. To the point you made speak about the branding, seeing my brand aspect. I agree that should be put in, and we should start branding to the stuff that is made here in the Commonwealth. Totally agree. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And go ahead, Brad. I'm sorry about the bills. Go
Oh,
ahead.
you spoiled it. I didn't even see it, but I did receive a message asking if I saw that. I don't want to talk now. No. But I would say that the idea of branding the CNMI and branding Saipan for everything that we do makes great sense, and it's not just for local, like a great idea locally. Big brands see that. I could tell you that we have thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of Bubba Gump Saipan merchandise that is all about Saipan all over it, and there's no place for us to do anything with that. So now, because we don't have tourists coming in, we can't sell them. We don't have that stuff. But it's great if you look at our restaurant, Surf Club Saipan, Surf Rider. Our website is even Saipan Surf Rider Resort. Branding Saipan and promoting Saipan, we all work together on all that kind of stuff. You're absolutely right. You're spot on. I think everyone sees the value in that. So thank you, and thanks for letting me know about the bills, Speaker. It just crushed me.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you all for this very productive and informative meeting. And let's not make this the last. We'll keep the communication doors open, and we'll be in touch. And with that, Sidus Masi, Kiliso, and thank you. Thank you.